Okay, so this video is to demonstrate how we take an unfinished board, which I've made available so that it's a lower cost solution. But when you get them, you have to stain them, of course, and clear coat them. So what we're going to show you how to do is take the board. This is a reject one. It had a little mess up when I was routing it. So I'm going to use this one as one to show an example of. The things that you will need before you start: some scrap t-shirt material. If you are doing several of these, I would suggest getting some of them from Home Depot or Lowe's. They have them in bundles and they're a couple of bucks. It's not a big deal. Gloves, absolutely need the gloves. Whatever size fits and whatever you're not allergic to. And then of course your stain. Now I suggest a lighter stain because when you stain inside of the letters, which I'll show, you want it to be darker. So golden oak or colonial maple are the two ones that are most popular. So first we're going to start off by putting on our gloves. And on your stain, if you're getting a new can, it likely will have the coloring settle at the bottom, so you're going to want to stir it up. Shaking it won't do it. So this one, however, has been used a lot, so I don't have to worry about that. Oh, and then the other thing that you're going to need is stain, or clear coat. So the clear coat that I like is Minwax. You can get it at Home Depot or Walmart. It's I think $7 a can. If you're doing several of these, if you're doing like 6, you might need 2 cans. One would do 3, no problem. But if you're getting over that, you might need a couple of cans, in which I'll demonstrate how to do this as well. Okay, so I'm gonna first. So we have two separate rags here. So I'm gonna set one off to the side. That one's for taking off stuff, taking off the stain. So we don't want it like super wet. We just enough. Let's see if you can see that a little bit better. So I'm just squeezing it out a little bit. And what we want to do is go around the edges. And then also get the back. This is looking really light. Maybe this is not the can that I use. Oh, no. So I can feel that it has some stuff at the bottom, so I need to mix it up a little bit more. And depending on how you want this, you may want it lighter, but I still suggest stirring it up because you're not going to get a consistent stain color if it's not mixed up well. Okay, so again, not super wet at first. So we're going to stain this, and you see the difference on the color already versus before I had mixed it up. So go around the edges, make sure you get the crevices here using my finger, and do the back. Trying to do this so that the camera can see it as opposed to me. So one thing that you want to do, if it's really, really wet, you're going to get like darker spots. So here, watch. This is really wet. So you can see I have like drips now. and then the stain's a little bit darker. Again, it depends on what you're going for. You can always go darker by adding other layers, but it's not possible to really go lighter unless you sand it down, which you do not want to do that. All right, so I'll just spread this all in. And again, this is a reject board, so that's why it's not carved here on the side, but just going through the steps to show you. All right, so now what we want to do, depending on, this is my personal preference, I like the sun rays not stained. So what I do is I take this around my finger. Again, it's damp, it's not soaking wet at all. And so I just get it on my finger like that, and then I just trace around the edge. And it's getting a little light, so I need to get a little bit more. Just want to make sure that it's not soaking wet. And I was just trying this out on a test board, if you've never done this before. But as you can see, when I'm doing that, it makes this very, very tight, and then I can just use my finger to trace the edges. Now, if you do happen to get stain down in here, you can take some sandpaper after this dries a bit and sand that out. It's just a little bit of a pain in the butt because you're going to then have sanding marks. Also, you want to do this in a well-ventilated area. I'm just out here in the garage. It's a little cold here today. So see, I got a little spot right there. I would go back in and, oh, just made it worse. Go back in and sand that out. Okay, so now that that's on there, what I'll show you, the reason why you can't really get the letters is that the letters have like these little nice serifs on the font, and because of that, when I try to go over, even if I go really, really lightly, no matter what I do, I always inadvertently get stain a little bit into the letter. So if there's a little bit of stain in the letter, it doesn't look very good. So what I found that I like better is getting this really wet, making sure that when you're coming over it, when you're coming over to the letters, that you don't take the dripping one over your non-stained area. So I'm going to just dip it in there, make it really soaked. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to try a different technique of using a different color stain, which I'll show you in a second and see if that works. So now that this is in there, we want that to sit, but we don't want the stain out here to be too much. So we're going to just wipe that away, because we actually want this to be lighter, and we want the letters to be darker. And the way we do that is by letting the stain settle in there and sit in there for a while. So we'll just let that sit, and I'll just stain this other area. You can see it's kind of dark, so if you just go right afterwards and wipe it off, it lightens it right back up. And so you can see that the stain's still in there, so we're going to let that sit for a few minutes. You want it to really soak up. You do want to set a timer. You don't want it to be too long. You know, like if it was 20 minutes, that would be fine because there's a lot of stain in there, but you don't want it to dry because then you get these like nasty little bubbles and it'll look bad. And as you can see, this is dried now pretty well. And you can see that the letters are darker, and all we did was use this other stain and let it sit in there for a while. So that looks pretty good. Okay, for clear coating, you want to make sure that the stain's dry. You know, if it's been, you know, a few hours, you're probably fine, depending on how cold it is. And also when you're doing all this well-ventilated area, if you're going to do it in the garage, do it with the garage closed so there's no wind, but then like you need to crack the garage open so that you can let some air in because it smells really bad. Alright, so I use these little scrap wood that I've cut down just to lift it off. So we're going to start with the back first. So again, I'm using satin. If it was gloss, it'd be the same steps. Also, when you're doing any of the clear coating, make sure your area is covered because it's going to make a giant mess. And anything you don't want overspray on, move it out of the way. Okay. I'm shaking it up really good. You can hear the metal in there. And so I'm going to just do light sprays, and I'm going to be out away from it a little bit. So let me move this in. Okay, so I'm a few inches away. And just do light. That quickly, and that's all you want. You're going to let that sit for 10 minutes. Okay, it's been 10 minutes, and so now we're going to do it again. We want to make sure we get the sides a little bit. And if I didn't have the camera there, I'd be walking around it. Alright, and we're going to let that set for another 10 minutes. Okay, now it's been another 10 minutes, and now we're going to, those were like pretty light coats, and so now we're going to go a little bit slower and put it on there heavier. Okay, now we're going to let it sit for at least an hour. You know, on the can it says dried to the touch in like 30 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that. Don't touch it for an hour to 2 hours. Once it's done, just so that I can continue on with the video, once it's done and dried, make sure that you can touch it, and that's why we're doing the back first. Touch it, it's not tacky at all. You don't want it to be tacky whatsoever. If you have some other scrap wood that you can paint while or clear coat and do your testing on, you can touch that and make sure it's not tacky. But again, wait at least an hour to 2 hours, preferably 2 hours. Alright, now we're going to flip it over. Still using our little scrap pieces here. And we're going to just simply do the same thing with the front. And important, make sure you get all the sides. And again, if I was not standing over there and the camera wasn't there, I'd walk around. Because the reason why is you want to make sure that you're getting in to the letters from that angle and then also from this angle so that the clear coat gets all the way in there. And what you're going to notice is that the yellow, the wood's going to start to turn a little yellowish. And that is, again, we repeat the steps, do a couple of light coats, and then you can do a much heavier coat after you've done 2 light coats. And now, don't touch it for a day. Just let it sit there and make sure that it's 100% dry. 'Cause the last thing you want to do is get a thumbprint on it, and then you're going to be upset. So that's how we're going to do that. Next, we're going to show how to put the dowels in the holes here, and we'll show that next.